Good morning again to those of you who've just joined. We'll just give it a moment as everyone is starting. If you'd like to pop into the chat where you're joining from today, just so we can get a sense of who's in the room while we're waiting, you're welcome to do that. Brisbane. Oh, amazing. Got some good engagement. People from Brisbane, Auckland, Perth, Christchurch, Canberra, Griffith. This is good because, as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not Australian originally. So this is a really good sort of lesson in Australian and New Zealand geography. Okay, cool. So I think if people are still joining, they'll continue to join. And obviously you're welcome to continue popping your locations into the chat. But I think we're going to sort of jump in so that we can make sure to finish on time. So good morning again, and thanks so much for joining our webinar. My name's Elise, and I'm one of the partner managers here at EzzyBills, and really excited to be your host this morning. So as you know, because you're here this month, we're going to be doing a bit of a deep dive into our SIMPRO integration, which in terms of our sort of job and project management integration is really one of the most popular ones. And based on what you could see in the title, we're really excited to sort of show you how you can further help reduce your admin and data entry and approvals with working with these two integrations together. So before we dive in, just a bit of a corny joke. So why did the finance manager start taking yoga classes? Because he wanted to stretch his budget. So now we're going to jump into the integration and learn a little bit more about it. But before we kick off, we're really lucky to be joined by Nick Hardy, who's part of the partnerships team at SIMPRO, to share a little bit of support with us just from SIMPRO themselves. So Nick, over to you.
Thanks, Elise. Appreciate your introduction, and just like to welcome everyone in the room. On behalf of SIMPRO, we've put a lot of effort into our partner program over the last couple of years and introducing tech partnerships, service partnerships, and a whole range of different partnerships into the ecosystem. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today in attendance and to support what EzzyBills have built over the last few years. The integration is a testament to the hard work, and obviously the attendees and registrations are a testament to the need for the integration itself as well. So huge supporter of the guys. They're a huge supporter of us. More than thrilled to be here and watch it all unfold. I know Kedar and Elise, for that matter, have done an exceptional job in working behind the scenes and getting it up and running. So if there are there are customers here that aren't SIMPRO already, please reach out to Elise, who will pass on your information through to me. If not, if you are a SIMPRO customer and want to explore it in a bit more depth, obviously go through the EzzyBills guys. But we can also get in touch with the local CSM at SIMPRO that will be able to help any queries you have on your account as well. So Elise will be able to facilitate those questions, be able to introduce you into me, who will then be able to sort of help you with your local CSM. So without further ado, let's get cracking. Again, a massive thank you to everyone that's in attendance, and a massive thank you to EzzyBills for building what is a great integration and solves a problem which we all love. So thanks for having me.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Nick, again, for your support. And yeah, it was, just for everyone in the room, it was great to sort of meet Nick and work with Nick. We really had an amazing opportunity to travel as part of the SIMPRO Roadshow last year. Kedar and I were both, well, Kedar did all of the events and I was able to join for some of them and meet with Nick and other people as part of the SIMPRO team. So that was a really great experience, and looking forward to sort of future collaborations on that front as well. So without further ado, we're going to hand over to Kedar, who's really our EzzyBills and SIMPRO expert, and he'll be sort of guiding us through the majority of the webinar and show us some of the functionality and our integration with SIMPRO. We are going to be taking questions as we go, so feel free to pop your questions into the chat, and when we've got a break or a pause, we'll sort of ask them as we go, and there'll also be some dedicated time for some Q&A. I am going to answer one question before we start that somebody already asked, which is, can we get a copy of the recording? And the answer is yes, we will be sending out a recording to everyone who's here, and also anyone who registered who wasn't able to attend. So you will be able to get a copy of that. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Kedar.
Well, thank you, Elise. It was lovely start of the session, and thank you, Nick, for being here. Really appreciate the support from Simpro. All right, so let's get to it. So in this session, what we're gonna do is there is a lot of topics that we are going to cover. Some are basics, some are advanced. But as you can see, these are the topics that we are going to discuss, right? Chronologically, so we will start with how to set up EzzyBills, and as it says, under 6 minutes, it's actually take under 4 minutes. But so we'll start from that, and then we will dive into your workflows, contractor invoices, project managers, purchase orders, and recording expenses directly onto the job, as well as how you can do a dual account setup where one EzzyBills account is catering to both your needs, wherein if it's a job expense, it sends it to Simpro. If it's overheads or utilities, then it sends to your accounting software, be it Xero, QuickBooks, or MYOB. So for ease of the session, I've divided it into two parts. First one is the easy one, wherein I'm gonna do a live, everything live on EzzyBills website as to setting up EzzyBills, then connecting Simpro, and then we will dive into the dual account setup as well, right? So, and then the next part is where things get a little bit advanced, a little bit difficult. It's further divided into two parts. First is your basic settings and configuration of your EzzyBills profile, whether it's Simpro connected to Simpro or it's connected to Xero. And then we will deep dive into workflows. That's the section which is like a little bit advanced. So we'll go slow. So let's start with setting up EzzyBills. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go to EzzyBills website, and I'm going to click on 14 days free trial, right? That opens this registration page. Now for the ease of access, I've already filled it. So username, it's going to be your business username. Email is where you want to receive the notifications regarding that particular entity. For example, check PO fails or any error comes up. That is the email where EzzyBills will send you the notification. So you fill in your username, your email, contact name, phone number, pretty basic details. It takes literally less than 2 minutes for you to fill this information, the password, location Australia, and the key thing is integrate with Simpro. As soon as you selected everything, you tick the I've read the box, I'm not the robot, and then you register. As soon as you register, EzzyBills is going to create your account. Now, as you saw, this is very basic information, right? EzzyBills will create your account. Let's assume that takes you less than 2 minutes. Now, the second part is connecting your Simpro with your EzzyBills, and that is super simple. I'm gonna switch over to Simpro, and in Simpro, I will go to settings, and in the settings, we have setup. So I'm gonna click setup. And in the setup menu options, you will find API and you go into the applications. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to create an application here. It is super easy. I click create application. In company, we will type in EzzyBills and we'll copy it over in the name section as well. So super simple. You click create application, you type in EzzyBills, copy that same thing in the name EzzyBills, and in authentication method, we will select API key. That's all there is to it for the integration, right? So in company EzzyBills, name EzzyBills, authentication method API key, and then you hit create. As soon as you hit create, Simpro will generate the download key. You can open the download key. Let's save the download key, and then let's open it. This is the file that you get, and this has an access token. We need to copy that access token because we want to put it back in EzzyBills. So let's go back to EzzyBills. In here, I will go to apps. This is where all the EzzyBills apps are. You want to find Simpro. And in Simpro, you just got the access token. That's your Simpro key. You will put that in here. And your URL, you will put that URL in your Simpro host, and then you will just type in your company name. As soon as you're done, you click save, and you will click test connection and it will say it's connected. So on and all, we created a trial. We went into SIMPRO, we created an API application, fill in the details, and your EzzyBills is now ready. Your SIMPRO is now connected with your EzzyBills. That's how easy it is to get started with EzzyBills, right? Now, this is your SIMPRO account. We will deep dive into workflows in a moment, but let's also look at how you can add an accounting like a Xero or a QuickBooks or a MYOB account within this account. So all you've got to do is once you've created a trial, you've connected it with SIMPRO. Now you want to add a sub account. So you just go into settings in EzzyBills and you click add new account. ABC, let's say ABC Corp 0. All right. Now, in this case, I'm connecting it with Xero, so that is correct. And I'm going to add account. So now it says new account is added, ABC Corp. There we go. So now I first created an account, which was ABC Corp, which I've connected to SIMPRO. Then I've created another account. In my case, it's Xero. So I have created that for Xero. If you're using MYOB, if you're using QuickBooks, the only change in the software, you will select MYOB or QuickBooks. And then you have two entities. One is connected with your SIMPRO. The other is connected with your Xero. And then the Xero entity, just like we connected SIMPRO entity with SIMPRO, you will connect this with Xero. You will go to the apps, you will click on connect in Xero. It will take you to Xero page. So as soon as you click connect, it's going to take you to Xero. You simply select the organization, click allow access, and it's connected. Obviously, if you have multiple entities in Xero, it will ask you again like this. So it's going to ask you again. So I'm going to select the right entity and I'm going to click connect. As soon as I click connect, the EzzyBills account is now ready for both SIMPRO as well as Xero, right? So that's how you quickly get started with EzzyBills. Now, the first section just covers this, and we added two so far because I had one entity. If I had multiple companies in SIMPRO, all I need to do is I need to repeat the step 2 again and again. So I'll go to the settings and I'll add as many new accounts as many entities I have in my SIMPRO, right? So any questions in this section as to how you can sign up for a trial connected with SIMPRO, then create another account and then connect it with Xero? At least I think we are getting questions. Do we have any questions so far?
We don't. There are a couple that I've just responded to. Here, there's one question that's just come through. Priscilla, do we connect our own practice or our clients?
Yeah, so it depends. The account that you've created, are you going to use for your own practice? Like if your own practice is SIMPRO, you want to use it for it, you will connect your own account to your own practice. But if you're creating a client account, like if I was to create this ABC Corp, if it was my client, then I would connect client's SIMPRO or a client's Xero to this account. It just depend which account you're creating on behalf of client or you're creating for yourself.
Peter, maybe if you just got a second, you can just show the HQ dashboard really quickly.
Oh, this doesn't have HQ dashboard.
Oh, it doesn't
This
have
is a
it.
simple,
So,
yeah, this is an individual account.
right.
Obviously
Okay.
in HQ, yeah, you can add more, but this is just a SIMPRO and it's Xero. So HQ is where you can add multiple clients accounts and then connect it and control them from your HQ. Yeah, you can definitely explore that if you are a practice and you have many clients and you want to connect them with SIMPRO or Xero. Okay, so moving on. So once your account is created, then the most basic thing is your settings configuration, right? So there is few things that if you add it in EzzyBills, it will be much better in terms of you telling EzzyBills that this is my ABN or this is my GST number. Whenever you're looking at bills, exclude these and look for supplier numbers. So all these you can set up in EzzyBills settings. So if I go back to my EzzyBills account and if I go into the settings, this is where if you put the info like my ABN, you update your business ABN. If in case you have multiple ABNs, you can have comma and then put another multiple ABNs. Same goes for my company. If your business name is just one, you can put that in. If you have multiple business name which appears on different bills, you can have comma and then you can put multiple multiple business names. So in that way, EzzyBills, when it looks at that ABN or it looks at that name on the bill, EzzyBills knows that this is us. And then it goes and finds the vendor or the supplier ABN or supplier name. So that helps EzzyBills in identifying supplier and identifying the supplier name matching. And then we have the setting wherein it says automatic or archive document when workflow clump. So if you don't want the documents to see here once they are completed, you can just enable that setting in the settings. And what EzzyBills will do is as soon as a document is exported in your SIMPRO or Xero, it will automatically archive it. It will automatically delete it. Although it deletes it, it's never deleted permanently. EzzyBills stores a document for up to 7 years from the date of upload. So if you want to look at those archive documents, all you've got to do is you just got to tick this little box you see here. And as soon as you tick, all the archive documents will appear in front of you. Yeah, and then these were generic business settings which you would update for both your entities, whether it's SIMPRO or whether it's Xero, correct? But now SIMPRO specific, the item code creation. Now EzzyBills, when it's processing bills, EzzyBills has the functionality where to find items in your PO or in your catalog. And if they are not found either in your purchase order or in your catalog, EzzyBills creates that item. Based on the bill information, the part number, and the line description, EzzyBills can create that item for you. Now, for some customers, for some clients, they want EzzyBills to create, and in other cases, they don't want EzzyBills to create the items. Now, this is a very simple setting you can configure in your EzzyBills settings option. So you can go to the settings, advanced options, and here in item invoices, you find that setting, allow EzzyBills to create new items. If you tick it, obviously you are then allowing EzzyBills to create the new item codes in your SIMPRO catalog. So if on the bill there are 10 line items, in the PO you only have 8, and we discover that the last 2 are not in your PO and neither in your catalog, we will create those items for you. If you allow EzzyBills to create, it will create. If you do not allow EzzyBills, if you don't want EzzyBills to create new items, then obviously it will not create, but EzzyBills will then raise it as a flag that these item codes are not in your catalog. You need to add them in your catalog. So the way it works is whenever there is such an error, if you haven't given EzzyBills the permission, then you will need to manually add them in your catalog. And then in EzzyBills, you can simply restart. And then once we retry, we know that you added the items, and then we'll process it. But if you don't want to do it manually, if you just want to automate it and you're happy if EzzyBills creates more items, then just go ahead and turn on this setting. As soon as you do turn on that setting, EzzyBills will create the items. And by default, when we are creating the items or when we are creating the receipts, you can choose whether you want EzzyBills to mark those items as received or you want EzzyBills to mark those items as not received. So that setting is also in the advanced option all the way to the bottom, wherein in miscellaneous, you can see don't set items as received in SIMPRO. So if you have a PO and we create a receipt on it, by default, we will mark it as items received. If you follow a process where you get the bill first before the goods and you don't want the items to be marked as received, then you can just turn on this setting, simply tick it, and then click Save Settings. From that point onward, whenever we create a receipt, we will not set those items as received. So later on, when you actually receive the physical goods at your warehouse, you can then go into that receipt and then mark them as received. So these are the basic settings of SIMPRO. Right, item code creation and items receipt. Now we will be moving to the workflows, which is a little bit advanced. I will first cover basic workflows. So in terms of functionality, EzzyBills has 3 different functionalities with SIMPRO, right? First is obviously the purchase orders. You have purchase orders in SIMPRO and you get bills from supplier and you are to create receipts. So we create receipts We match the purchase orders, we match the line items, and then we create the receipts on the purchase order. The second is contractor invoices. This is work orders. You're creating work orders, you're sending it to subbies, they do the job, they send you the invoice, and then you are to process that invoice. So that is for work orders. We call it contractor invoices. And lastly, we have something called as job cost. Now, imagine a situation where technicians are on the field, they are doing a job, and then suddenly they realize that they are short on a few items and they don't have time to raise the PO, follow the process. What they would do is they would straight away go to the shop, they buy the stuff, they finish the job, and then they go to the office, submit the bills. In that case, there was no purchase order that was raised in that situation, or no work order that was raised. So how do you record that expense in the job? Either you follow the traditional process wherein you will create PO manually and then you will send the bill through EzzyBills, or you can directly send it onto the job cost workflow of EzzyBills without any, because job cost workflow, what it does is it doesn't require any PO or any work order to record that expense. The job cost workflow will simply ask you which job you would like this bill to be assigned to. Once you enter that in EzzyBills, we will create a purchase order on that job using the bill information. And on that purchase order, we will create the receipt using the bill information, and then we will attach the PDF. So all the three steps, creation of purchase order, creation of receipt, and attaching the PDF, all the three steps get automated with the job cost workflow. So you don't, so if you are in a process wherein you go directly buy stuff and then you do the creation, PO creation, and then you receive it, you're doing the receiving, the job cost workflow would save you a lot of time. So let's go and let's see how these workflows are created, how you can create it, how you can customize it. So when you create an EzzyBills account, you already get the purchase order workflow because that's your default workflow. So I'm going to go now into workflows section. So as you can see, you already have SIMPRO PO check. That is the purchase orders workflow. That's the default SIMPRO workflow. Now you want to create a workflow for contractor invoices. It's super easy. All you've got to do is you can create new workflow, create using template, create from templates, and then you can just type in contractor. So there you go. So it gives you options, SIMPRO contractor workflow. It also gives you contractor project manager workflow. We will look into it in a moment. So let's select SIMPRO contractor workflow and then create it. So that creates your contractor job workflow. So now you have two workflows. First one, which is the default, which was your purchase orders workflow, where you will be sending bills that you want to create receipts on purchase order, match purchase orders. And then you have contracted job, wherein you have raised a work order and you've received an invoice from contractor. You will send that onto this workflow. Now, when you have two workflows, notice that on the dashboard, you only see one email address here, correct? But you have two workflows now. What this email address does is anything you send here, it's automatically being sent to your active workflow. So if we come in workflow, you can see there is an active keyword in front of SIMPRO PO check. So whenever you use the upload email address, which is shown on the dashboard, it will always send bills to your active workflow. You can change the active workflow. It's a simply, so this is active. As of now, this is not. If I want to make the contractor job as my active workflow, all I can do is I can select this, set it as active workflow, confirm. Now it's switched. Now, if you use this email address, abccorp@ezzybills1.com, instead of those bills landing onto PO check, they will go into the contractor job because I've changed the active workflow. So that email is only used for the active workflow. For all the other workflows, you have your workflow specific email addresses, which you can copy from workflow screen. Or if you would like to drag and drop, then you can just go advanced upload, select the workflow that you are dragging and dropping, and then you can drag and drop in the files. So any of the two methods will work, right? Now, so far we have two workflows. We still want to see the job cost workflow. Now, if I want to create the job cost workflow, again, the same process. I'm going to go create new workflow, create workflow using template and create from templates. And I'm gonna just say job. As soon as I type job, we can see we have Simpro job cost workflow and we create it. That's our job cost workflow, right? Every workflow has certain steps and certain tasks. We will come into that in a moment as well. So now instead of one, I have 3 workflows. I have contractor invoices, I have job cost workflow, and then I have purchase orders workflow. Now, if I want to upload bills to the ones which are not active, I will be using the workflow specific email addresses. Correct? And if I want to drag and drop, I can just simply click advanced upload, select the box that I want to drag and drop onto, and then I will drag and drop. Correct? So any questions so far? Because the next stuff that I'm going to talk about is a bit more advanced.
So we just had one question from a few minutes ago. Kirsten asked, the setting to not process the receipt looks global. Is there an option to do it per supplier?
Do not process the receipt, as in do not receive the goods.
Yeah, I think that's what, yeah.
No, that's not. So yeah, so do not, that's an account wide setting, right? So if you enable it, it's gonna affect all the bills on that EzzyBills entity. It is not a workflow specific setting. I think we are soon going to introduce it as a workflow specific setting, but it might take a bit of time. As of now, it's account wide. So if you enable it, it will affect all the bills that you're processing from that entity. You can always have multiple entities and have one on and have one off.
That's it for now, I think, in terms of questions.
All right. So far we have looked into how we can create basic workflows, correct? And we've looked into how you upload your bills into the workflows. You can drag and drop, you can use email. The next section is what we've gonna look at, how you can create custom workflows, how you can add approvals, how you can add project managers or your contractor project manager, correct? Now, what I want to do is, let's assume I want to make purchase order approval workflow, and I want to send bills to project manager in Simpro. So what I want to do is, on default check PO, we can see that what happens is bill comes in, it gets extracted, we check the PO and we straight away export it to Simpro. So there is no approval process. But if I want to add an approval process here, then what I can do is I will have to create a new workflow. So I'm gonna, again, create a new workflow. There's 2 different options. Either you can create a new workflow or you can simply duplicate it from here, right? So the easiest option is just simply duplicate this workflow. And after you have duplicated that workflow, you will then need to amend it as per your needs. So now I want to call this approval workflow. So I'm just gonna rename it Simpro PO check approval. And then I will add the approval levels in it. So whenever I'm adding the approval levels, it will be before Simpro export, obviously, because we want to approve the bill first and then it gets exported to Simpro. So I can add this approval 1 and then approved 1. What this does is now we have added a single level of approval, and there is 2 tasks to add each level. They submit approval 1 and approved 1. But with this approval, what can be done is when a bill comes in EzzyBills, it will sit in here in waiting approval window. So you can come in, see it, you can assign it to someone, or you can approve it. But if you want to send it to someone, to a specific person for approval, then you can go to the settings and you can have that email entered in your settings for level 1. So if you enter any email here, let's say I've entered my email, kedar@ezzydoc.com, then every time a bill will come in at submit approval level 1, because we have entered that email in the settings, EzzyBills knows this person is the approval for level 1. So EzzyBills will automatically email all the bills to that person in level 1. If you want to add 2 levels of approvals, then you just need to, again, add second level as well. So as I added approval 1, we can see there is submit approval 2 as well. I'll simply drag and drop it in here. Now it becomes 2 levels. And if I want to also specify who's going to be at the second level, I can then specify that in here as well. So, and if you do not specify, it will sit in waiting approval. And from here, you can manually direct and control the traffic. From waiting approval, you can select a few bills, send it to one person, then you can go on. You can select different bills to different person, and then they will receive the email, they can do the approval. But this is manual approval. You are either letting EzzyBills know in settings who is the approver, or you are setting the person itself, or you are manually controlling who the bill is going for approval. Let's say if you want to add project manager approval, wherein bill comes in, EzzyBills checks the purchase order in SIMPRO. Then EzzyBills checks which job the purchase order is linked to and who's the project manager of the job. And EzzyBills sets that project manager as an approver for that PO. Wouldn't that be amazing? So to do that, what you can do is, let's go back to the workflow screen. So if you want to create the project manager approval workflow, simply you can go ahead and create workflow, create from templates, and then you can go project. Now notice there are 2 project manager workflows. So first one is SIMPRO contractor project manager. Obviously, you have a work order section and you have purchase order section. If you want the same approval workflow for your work orders, where when you upload a bill from a subcontractor to the work order workflow, and you want EzzyBills to do the same thing, check who's the project manager for that job and send him an email approval, you will create contractor project manager workflow. In this case, we are creating purchase order project manager, which is the project manager approval workflow, the normal one. And if we create it, we will see that EzzyBills automatically adds the project manager approval task and project manager approved task. Now, what these 2 do is when the bill comes in, they will look who's the project manager, and they will set that person as the project as an approver, and we will send EzzyBills will automatically send an email to that person, right? Whosoever is the project manager. And once he receives the email, he doesn't need to remember any login address or any password. In that email itself, there is approve, reject, and modify button. If you click modify button, he will see all the bills that are pending for him. Now, going further into customization, in the project manager, you can choose one of the 3 people. You can either choose project manager of that job, you can choose the PO creator of that PO, like whosoever has created the purchase order, or the salesperson. You can choose one of these 3 people, and then EzzyBills will set him as approver. If you would like to add that, you can see on the project manager approval section, we have a little settings icon here. We click on it, and then you see approval type and then quite a bit of rules. In approval type, there is 3 supported. If you do not set anything, by default, it's obviously the project manager. If you want to set the PO creator, you will then need to patch that in there. If you configure it like this, we will then pick whosoever has created the purchase order, send him an approval email, he approves it, and then we export it into SIMPRO. If you would like the approver to be the salesperson because you're using that field in the job, then you can set him as well. As soon as you configure, we will change it, we'll grab the email, and then we will send him an email approval, right? And once he approves, then the bill moves forward. Then it goes into your SIMPRO. Now, having said this, you can customize the workflow as we want. If we want first level to be the purchase order creator, whosoever created the purchase order, right? Second level is a generic manager, department manager. And then the third one is again project manager that can be customized. That EzzyBills is completely customizable, and we can completely customize the levels EzzyBills supports up to 5 levels of approval. So we can add up to 5 people, one after the other, right? And then we can play with the workflow. So that's the SIMPRO project manager workflow, which can automate your assignment of approval to the project manager, and you will not have to do anything. As soon as you upload the bill, we will assign it to the project manager. He will be the approver. He will receive an approval email, and he's supposed to approve the bill. The same goes for contractor invoices as well. Exactly the same method. You go ahead, you create it from the template, and you choose contractor project manager workflow, and then you will create that workflow. I feel I'm going very advanced. At least, like, is that?
Yeah, let me jump in with a couple of clarification, clarification questions in some cases. So we'll jump back a bit, and then there were a couple of questions about the approvals. So the first question of this batch is, can we upload a CSV XLS file with costs to import into SIMPRO? The CSV file will have job number, etc., to add to a description PO or similar.
It can be done with the customizations. It cannot be done from the UI. It will have to be done from the backend, depending on what is the exact requirement. As long as we want to create a bill on a purchase order or a bill on a work order, or we want to, even if it's a description PO and we want to create a receipt, it should work. EzzyBills also supports creating purchase orders in SIMPRO itself. So depending on what is the requirement, we'll have to be very specific, and we will have to configure it in the backend, in the customizations, but it is possible.
Amazing. Okay. This is a good question, and probably a question that other people have as well. Can you set the approvals based on dollar value?
Yes. So we have a special slide which will tell you all about the sub conditions, but just focus on, as of now, I want to just confirm whether everybody understands how to create workflow, how to customize the workflow, and how to add the approvals.
Okay, so there's one more question slash comment from Chris. If you automate the process of line item creation, the item will end up in no group and archived automatically within the SIMPRO catalog. It's an important thing to note because some clients do not care. Others will want the details within their structured material hierarchy.
Oh yeah, that is correct. We do put it in no group section. And at the end of the day, or at the end of the week, you decide as a client, you would decide whether you want to map those newly created items in no group section with the correct suppliers, or you want to get rid of them, you want to delete them. Because even if you delete those items, it doesn't affect the receipt, because receipt will always have those lines in it. So your costing is not getting affected even if you delete those newly created items. It's like a one-off item.
Okay, and maybe we'll just squeeze in one more, but we might need some clarification. So someone has asked, you have more information on how the job cost workflow works. I don't know, maybe you can, whoever's asked that question, maybe you can just expand a little bit if you've got a specific question.
Oh, absolutely. What I would rather do is, while I'm going to explain the other stuff, let's just upload a document to the job cost workflow just to see how it works. We will come back to it in a moment. So I'm selecting the job cost workflow.
Okay, how does it find the job? I think is the specific question on that.
So that is EzzyBills is going to ask you, and you will select one of the jobs. I'll show you in a moment when this document gets processed. It gives you an option to assign the job. It shows you your list of jobs from SIMPRO. You can search in it. You can find the desired job. You select the job, and then you hit save, and then it moves forward. All right. So before we move ahead, one thing to note here is EzzyBills custom extraction, right? So in case of SIMPRO specifically, because SIMPRO is designed around part numbers and description and quantity, it is essential that the extraction of your bill is correct. So when you're using EzzyBills, the first thing you might need to check is whether EzzyBills has extracted all the stuff from the bill correctly. Now you can see I've attached some screenshots here. That's the standard Bunnings bill. And we have a header section. This is the header section where you can see invoice date, invoice number, business number. And then we have the invoice table sections. You can see it in your EzzyBills as well. If you upload a document, you click on the document, we will show you both. There will be invoice table and there will be invoice header section as well. As long as this information you see is correct, the EzzyBills extraction is correct. In some cases, what happens is if the bill is not a typical A4 size invoice table structure, that alignment is not correct, then sometimes EzzyBills might, you will find it that EzzyBills is not extracting the correct figures because the alignment is not correct of the bill. If you spot it, if you notice something like that, you can highlight it to us along with the EzzyBills doc ID, and then we can check if we can customize that extraction, or we can teach the system to extract that invoice in a certain way where that information is captured and the extraction is correct. Most of the times what happens is if the extraction is correct, SIMPRO export will always be correct, because part number, description, this is very crucial information. We use part numbers to do the line matching when we are exporting to your SIMPRO. If the part number is not matched, we use the description, the line item description, to do the fuzzy matching when we are matching the line items from bill versus your PO. So these things are important. And if they are not getting extracted correctly, you might want to highlight it to us. So then we can go ahead and we can put some learning rules and we can add some extraction rules, and then the extraction is correct. Once we add those rules in, then the extraction will be correct until and unless your supplier changes the format again. If this bill format is changed again, obviously those rules will not work. So that's a thing to keep in mind for. And then as we have had more questions about the conditions and what based on value, based on supplier, so let's move there. This is where you can have that answer. So if we go to the customizations, EzzyBills can be customized. There is n number of factors we can do the customization, and we are always adding new customization parameters and we are always doing custom development for SIMPRO customers, because what in our experience, two customers that are using SIMPRO are not using it in the same fashion, right? They have their own custom fields, they have their own customizations, and they will need something or the other. They will need certain conditions. So these are some example conditions that we have, like you can have approvals based on invoice amount, as I'm pretty sure there was someone who was asking based on value. So if invoice amount is greater than 5,000, trigger approval, sure, you can have it. If invoice amount is between 5,000 and 10,000, trigger approval, absolutely yes. Invoice amount less than X doesn't need approval, fine as well. So we have different rules as of now around invoice amount. We can trigger approvals based on invoice amount, trigger approvals based on suppliers, trigger approvals based on hierarchy as well. Like if Kedar was the first approver, then the second is Elise. If Elise was second approval, the next is Nick. All such chain approvals, like if level 1 was X, level 2 will be Y. We can do those chain approvals as well. So these are some most widely used rules that I'm showing you. PO versus bill matching conditions based on cost centers, like certain specific cost centers in SIMPRO only require approval, others they don't. All these conditions is what we have developed after our customers came to us and then they asked us, especially this PO versus bill. Now, if I am to focus on one conditions, the last one, it says, if invoice line quantities are greater than PO quantities, trigger approval, meaning the bill has came in and there is a PO. Now, EzzyBills is comparing bill lines, bill items versus the PO. If it matches exactly, if PO has 10 items, bill came in with 5 items, that's fine, no approval required. If there are any items extra on the bill than the PO, you require approval. So we have all those conditions, and we can definitely customize your workflows to have those conditions, and then we can trigger approval.
Well, okay, yeah, that covers probably 3 or 4 of the other questions that have come through, which is great. I don't know if this was a specific question based on somebody's experience, but they've asked, why does tax show a 0 in the Bunnings bill scraping?
Oh, you mean in mine? I think tax. No, there was tax here.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean this tax? Oh, don't worry about it. So this tax is and this bill that I'm showing is a testing account bill. It's a screenshot from my testing account where I have too many conditions, etc., etc. But the majority things that you want to check here is your item code, the description, unit price, and the total. As long as these four things are correct, you should be fine, right? And the tax in the header value should be what is on the bill. As long as those factors are correct, it should be correct. There should be no problem.
And are you able to show processing of a document live so people can see the workflow?
Yeah, absolutely. We were going to go back to that one, right? So yeah, so job cost workflow, there was a question for job cost workflow, right? So now this bill I've uploaded, it says in progress, and it's telling us EzzyBills, it's telling us assigned job, failed job, missing. Now what I'm going to do, and it also gives options of, assigned job. Now what I'm going to do, basically I've uploaded it on a job cost workflow to record it on a job. EzzyBills is asking me, all right, you uploaded it, you want to record it on a job, which job? All I need to do is I need to tell EzzyBills the job. So I'm going to click on assign job. This is the assign job page where you can see the PDF file, correct? You can see how PDF looks like. If you want to print it, you can print it. Want to save it, you can save it. And then you see the details, Bunnings, rah, rah, rah. So that's the supplier, that's the invoice number. If you want to modify, absolutely you can modify, right? Once you've checked everything, you come down here and then you select the job, the right job for that bill. You can search with, if you know the number, you can search with the number. If you know the name, you can search with the name. Anything that consists that job name or number or cost center, you can search it, and then EzzyBills will show you the matched options. You select the job and then you click save. As soon as you do it, what EzzyBills will do is EzzyBills, now invoice has been saved. We will see in a moment what EzzyBills will do. So I just assigned a job, right? And then now we will see what EzzyBills will do. Technically, EzzyBills will create a PO, create a receipt on that PO, and then attaches the PDF on that job. So that expense gets recorded onto the job.
Okay, so that's
and there we go. EzzyBills is too fast, so it's already exported it.
Didn't even give me time for questions.
EzzyBills is too fast. Yeah, so it says in EzzyBills it says successfully exported. That's the receipt. That's the invoice number. That's the PO number. Let's go and let's have a look at it in SIMPRO. So I'm gonna click on this link, which will directly take you to your SIMPRO. So let's go there. There you go. So that is the receipt. That is how the receipt looks. All the lines from the bills are there. In the attachments, you can see the PDF that was uploaded, that is there, and the PO has been created as well. So we did not create this PO. EzzyBills created this PO. EzzyBills created the receipt, and EzzyBills attached the PDF. So all the three things that we saw got automated, and that makes your job really easy. So that's how quick it is, right? Like we saw after I entered the job information, it literally took a couple of minutes and then it exported it into the SIMPRO. So yeah, so it's pretty good, I would say, pretty fast.
Amazing. Okay, we've got some questions building up as we approach the end of the session, which is really good. So someone's asked, just to jump back a step, once a bill is imported into one workflow, is there an easy way to transfer it to a different workflow?
The answer is yes and no, both. There is an easy way using switch workflow. No, because when would you like to transfer? When are you going to identify that, all right, this bill was supposed to go to a different workflow? Now, a workflow has stages. If you identify, let's say, I'm into PO workflow. If you identify at the export level that you want to change it to a different workflow, very difficult, right? Because it's already at the export level. If you identify at approval level, very easy, you can just click change workflow. So it really depends on where the bill sits in the stage in workflow, and then you can switch it to a different workflow.
Yeah, I find the easiest way is if the approver, any of the approvers can do it during the approval stage. I find
Correct.
that's generally
Absolutely.
the easiest way to do it. What if there are items that aren't GST applicable? Will a GST component pull through to SIMPRO on the individual line items, or will it only show the total amount displayed on the invoice?
If the bill has GST at line level, we extract it at line level. Yes, we will export it. But the way SIMPRO shows, it does show you unit price. Like if we just quickly have a look to the one that we just exported. So there is a receipt. Let's close this. Invoice quantity, unit price, total, and then you see the GST. So in any case, when we create the receipt, the GST is at the bill level, right? It's not shown in SIMPRO at the line level. So yeah, this is how I would say it would get exported. If you have, even if you have it bill level or line level and EzzyBills extracts it, I think we should handle it exactly as how we would have exported this one.
Great. Okay. This is a great question. I'm sure other people are thinking this as well. Can the invoice then be sent from SIMPRO to Xero for payment to be processed?
Oh, absolutely. That's your standard process, I would say. Like EzzyBills is taking off the manual work from you, wherein line item matching, PO versus bill, that's been happening. And then we create a receipt. And obviously from SIMPRO, from utilities, you would then export this bill into your Xero, and then it would go into your Xero for the payment. That is the standard workflow all of our clients follow. I mean, you can choose not to let SIMPRO export to Xero, because the only reason you would do that is when SIMPRO exports to Xero, it only exports the data and it doesn't sends the PDF attachment, right? EzzyBills, whenever it exports to either SIMPRO or Xero, we also attach the PDF. So that would be the only reason you can choose not to export bills from your SIMPRO to Xero, but let EzzyBills do both using customization. So EzzyBills exports to SIMPRO, and then the same bill it exports to Xero, and you get the PDF at both places. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, if Nick knows anything about when SIMPRO is planning to introduce, when they export to Xero, they will pass on the PDF attachment as well. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't help with that, Kadar, at the moment, but I can certainly take that as a note and go find out.
Okay, cool. Let's try to push through a couple more in the next 2 or 3 minutes. How
Yep.
can I stop EzzyBills from updating WO amount? I'm assuming that's work order.
If you have, when you've created the work order, if you have set a work order amount, then we will not modify it. But if you have created a $0 work order, then we adjust it. Then we modify it as per the bill.
Okay, what if there's a change on currency?
That's an interesting question. I haven't tested it myself. So I believe what we would do is, if at the end of the day, we are extracting numbers, we are exporting numbers. If in your like with Xero, we do support this because Xero can be a multi-currency Xero. Xero has support for US dollar and there are multiple currencies, and you set it at supplier level. So when we export, we are exporting numbers, we're giving it to Xero, and in Xero, that supplier is set to USD. So if the bill has 100, we export 100. Because the supplier is base currency USD, it takes it as 100 USD, does the conversion. We don't do conversions from USD to, we extract numbers, we export numbers. So if your SIMPRO, I'm not really sure on this, if the SIMPRO supports multi-currency, your SIMPRO is multi-currency, then I think it should work because we're extracting numbers and we're exporting numbers.
Yeah, so George has just mentioned in the chat, thank you, George, that it should be based on supplier setup. So it sounds like SIMPRO
Exactly,
works the same way as Xero, that you just, it's based on, yeah, the supplier.
Exactly the same as you would do for Xero, correct.
Yeah. Cool, okay. So before we finish off, someone's asked a question about pricing. Is the number of documents listed per year or per month value?
Right. So if we go there, so this is Australian pricing. So you will notice that we have all the plans are annual. The first 3 plans doesn't give you Simpro at all. Simpro and Tier, they start in E10 as the base plan. That's the base plan. So other software companies, they have different sort of limits on how many companies or how many users, rather all that stuff. Everybody has their own limits. At EzzyBills, we don't limit you on number of users or number of companies. The only limit that we have is the document limit. So it's either the year or the document, whichever finishes first, you got to renew the plan. That is not a monthly number, that is an annual number. So you get in $1,100, you get 5,400 documents. If you consume it in 3 months, you just have to renew the plan. Having said that, that is the number, it's the limit EzzyBills applies. But which plan is correct for you? For that, you have to look at what features you would want to use. So for example, you don't get a customization or account manager in E10, right? So you get it in E30, something like that. So it depends on what features, what customizations you want to use, how advanced it is. That determines what plan you should go ahead with. The limits is just how much you can use, and you only need one EzzyBills subscriptions for all your entities. Even if you have a multi-company Simpro, you have 5 companies there, and in EzzyBills you might have 10 entities, because if you have 5, you will have one for Simpro, one for Xero. So even if you have 10 entities, one single subscription is enough, and it will be shared amongst all your entities. That's how the pricing works.
Amazing. Okay, so I think we'll probably cut it at that because it's 12:30. If there are any other questions, feel free to contact us. Probably support@ezzydoc.com is the best way, and we'll channel the questions in the best direction, whether they're, I guess, technical in general about EzzyBills, about Simpro. I think our support team is the best place to start, and then they'll forward it across to the relevant person. Yeah, so just Kedar, if you've got any.
Yeah, it's if there are any other questions or any other queries, you can either email support, you can email me, that's fine, that's not a problem. We're happy to help you. And yeah, I think that sums up the session. Special thanks to Nick for being here, and thanks Elise for helping me out with I just saw there's a lot of questions, so really thanks, appreciate it for conducting the session.
And someone else asked about the recording. I answered it at the beginning, but I'll answer again. We will send out the recording to everyone who registered. So you will get that, and you're welcome to share it with colleagues or friends or whatever who weren't able to attend. So that's totally fine.
And thank you, Elise. Thank you, Kedar. And thank you to EzzyBills. Kedar, well done, mate.
Thank you, sir. We look forward for the next symposiums.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.